You know, I know we're probably hitting a fatigue of stuff like this recently, but I still hold on to the belief that remakes can be a good thing for games. They can breathe new life into an old product and give it some new fans. It can take the original game's flaws and improve upon them in very fantastic ways through things like adding on story or improving the graphics and gameplay. But what happens when it doesn't? What happens when a remake isn't able to surpass the original or even reach its level, but fails on pretty much every level? Well, what you get is Kingdom Hearts Re-Chain of Memories, a game that takes the formula of what made the original so great and kinda just fails at it on pretty much every level. There is many reasons why many people consider this game one of, if not the worst game in the entire series. But why? What makes it such a bad game? And what exactly does it do right, if it, even does anything right at all? Well, how about we stop talking and get into that, shall we? Okay, look, it would be so easy to ignore saying anything remotely nice about Re-Chain and focus solely on its faults. Believe me, I could do that, and I don't think many people who see this would blame me for it. But I'm not going to. I am going to be as fair as possible with every game I review, no matter how much I despise the game in question. So, what's great about it? Well, for one, the graphics are pretty nice. I'm guessing this game was made with the same engine they used to make Kingdom Hearts 2. As a result, everything has a nice stylization to it. The addition of voice acting is also a nice touch to this game as well. It's not perfect, mind you, there are some that are a bit weaker than the others, but I think it's a nice addition. They also made some other cool additions I'm actually impressed by, adding in both a duel system and even an extra boss battle in Riku's story that wasn't in the original game is nice. It's good to see that they're adding stuff. And of course, I have to give credit to the best aspect of this game, and that's how much they improved the Winnie the Pooh level from the original. They took what was arguably the worst level in the original Chain of Memories, and probably just Kingdom Hearts in general, retooled it into a level that's actually kind of fun to play. I enjoyed my time with the minigames there for a change, instead of actively just skipping the whole thing. And of course, the music is on point. Then again, every Kingdom Hearts game nails its music. The best is probably the remixed Castle Oblivion theme. And of course, the story is also phenomenal. It doesn't change anything from the original game story, outside of a few extra cutscenes in Riku's game, which was pretty cool, added a little more depth to the guy. But to be honest, that's pretty much it. Those are every single one of my pros. So how about we move on to what's next, shall we? Alright, now we're at the real meat of this video. Let's dig into the cons of Re-Chain of Memories. And hoo boy, there are so many. So we're gonna start things off with what I think the major problems are, and then move on to the more minor stuff. And kicking off this long list of problems is the game's combat, which is a massive downgrade in comparison to its original, for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, I need to talk about the size of the arenas. In the original Chain of Memories, you are placed in small, compact areas, which allowed you to be thrown right into the action and get straight to combat. It also allowed enemies to be just on your ass as you were on theirs. It was small, tight, and intense. Re-Chain decides to forego all that in favor of giving you a much larger arena than needed, and as a result, not only does this make battles feel longer than they need to, they are now also filled with a bunch of empty space that makes you just see how unnecessary this change to full 3D areas were. If you really needed a new style to utilize for the remake, why not just use Tales of Combat arenas? Those capture the idea of 2D combat brought to 3D pretty damn well. But no, I guess they just wanted to capture the arena style combat of 1 to add a new sense of scope to it, but instead it just makes arenas feel very dull and lifeless. Speaking of dull and lifeless, let's go over how much less fun the combat is in Re-Chain. Now, I've mentioned before in other videos about just how much I love the combat of Chain of Memories and found it very underrated. But holy shit, this remake does not understand what made the original fun. Combat has basically lost all of its speed and fluidity of the GBA originals, now replaced with the gameplay style of 1. Which could work, sure, but they instead chose to try to mix it in with the card system of Chain of Memories, which is a recipe for disaster. The card system works because you're solely on a 2D plane, so forcing in a 3D arena just forces the game to now have to deal with this new style, and it just doesn't work because the systems start fighting against each other. The card system works better because you're forced into small claustrophobic arenas where your cards are coming out lightning fast. But this time, however, it's just against you. You have two systems that fight with each other, and neither feel like it's just balanced in the slightest. And that makes combat one of the most frustrating things you have to deal with. It's basically, to sum it up perfectly, a combat system that doesn't know what it wants to be. As a result, you've gotta try to figure out which one it wants to be, and that's frustrating as shit. And this is before we've gotten into just how unbalanced this game is. So let's do that now. The new style of combat also came with a decent amount of all new sleights that Sora can utilize in battle. And while I want to give them credit and praise for adding them, they're hurt by just how broken they are. Particularly the sleight called Lethal Frame, which is a sleight that lets you stop time and deal free damage. That alone already sounds kinda nuts considering you can already make sleights busted by combining them with a Jafar card, allowing access to a broken combo loot, but what makes it even worse is that you don't even need to go out to find this one. You just get it when you're level 32, so you never have to worry about missing it or fulfilling any extra steps to become an unstoppable killing machine. You're just given it. Remember when you had to hunt down the powerful abilities in Chain of Memories so they felt more satisfying to utilize? Look, the original is far from a difficult game, but it was never so easy you were just given a sleight that ripped away literally everything. Even Holy, one of the strongest sleights in the entire game, took a bit of time to set up. Here it's just, nah. There are also others, of course, and they are both wrapped around Goofy. Goofy Smash and Goofy Tornado. Both abilities that only need Frem cards and barely any Keyblades to use them, and that makes them picture perfect for spamming if you get the cards. Sadly, Donald doesn't really get a chance to shine as he gets not many new sleights. Can't even remember if he gets any new ones, to be honest. Which kind of sucks, because this could have been the perfect chance to fix the biggest issue with using Donald in the original, and that's the fact you could never control his magic. Meaning, you could get healing when you didn't need it, or he could heal the enemy by using the wrong magic. But they don't, which is honestly kind of annoying. Like, imagine if they let you customize what magic Donald could use or something. I get it's not a perfect idea, but come on! Anything's better than the fear of you not using him due to fucking you over. If you couldn't tell by now, I'm a little annoyed, nah, probably miffed is a better word, by how much they've ruined the combat, as it was one, if not the best parts of the original game. Now it just feels like a hollow shell of its former self. Speaking of hollow, let's get to talking about the level design. Now, I will be the first to tell you the level design of Chain of Memories isn't anything amazing. There were a lot of square rooms you just ran through to get to the next fight. And that wasn't exactly a bad thing, and it also made sense considering these games were on a GBA. As such, they weren't working with the PS2 levels of power here. Plus, you could get through them pretty quickly. How does the PS2 remake tackle this? Well, let me tell you, little Jimmy. They add incredibly minor things to the levels. Like, hey, if you hit that, you can stun the enemies. You know, if you didn't want to hit him with your Keyblade, I guess. Or if you go and destroy these vine flower thingies, you'll open up the door. Wonderful. I'm not sure if this was meant to be a way of preserving the original, but man, it just does not work, like at all. It comes across as a really missed opportunity to spice up the level design. It just felt like they were more focused with getting a game out there than trying to improve upon the original. It reminds me of that one Dragon Quest game that came out recently, where there's little vision or interest in it other than just getting a game out, which leads to a pretty underwhelming experience. Alright, I've griped about this enough. What other problems does it have? Oh yeah, the voice acting sounds pretty stilted for some characters. I noticed it a lot with Mickey more than anyone else, although guys like Vexen and Larxene can sound kind of off in places too. It's not as massive an issue as the other ones we've talked about, but it was pretty jarring to me. And as a last complaint, the RNG of enemy cards is absolute garbage. This, however, is something you will only notice if you're stupid enough to try getting a platinum in this game like I was. Speaking of which, I've almost got it platinumed. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I'm tired. Remembering all the shit I had to put up with this game has kind of drained my energy. So how about we just wrap this up and move on to my final thoughts on all of this? Alright, we finally reached the end of the video. I've been insanely negative with this one. It's probably going to go down as the most negative I've ever been towards anything on this channel so far. But this wasn't done out of some twisted vitriol. More so, it's just a response of how much I adored the original style of Chain of Memories, and seeing the remake fail so much makes me just actively angry. I actually forget its good points from time to time. That's kind of how much I don't like this game. If you like this, all the power to you. I don't want to make it seem like you're wrong if you like this more than the original. I just cannot stand this remake. That's why my final rating for this game is a very negative 3 out of 10. The few good things it does doesn't really quantify playing it in my eyes. If you want to play Chain of Memories, just get the GBA version instead. That's all for this video. If you liked this, go ahead and drop a like and a sub. This is probably the most negative I've ever had to be, and thankfully the next game I've got planned won't have as much grumpiness to it. See you all later, and I hope you have a wonderful day.